I am not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive? If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now,
are we living in the Matrix? This is Two Steps Ahead podcast. I'm Son Edom, encouraging you to take your passion, make it happen, let yourself be great. What you just saw was a video, split screen. On top was Morgan Freeman in what is believed to be a AI created video, not really Morgan Freeman. Then the bottom video, portion of the video, is the guy that supposedly made it, or was it? That's the question. So when it comes to artificial intelligence and the synthetic reality that we are moving towards, is it a good thing? Well, with the good comes the bad, and that's what we're going to talk about. But to put it more into perspective of something that is good, perhaps, maybe entertainment, when it comes to entertaining people. I don't know if you watch America's Got Talent. I don't. But I remember when this came out, a couple of guys created, it looks like maybe it was a camera, like a movie camera, TV camera, one of those big ones, that you can record somebody doing something live and then project it and change the image. And so they changed the face of the singer on America's Got Talent from the original singer who actually sang the song. It was the singer's voice, I think, but maybe they altered the voice too to make it Simon Cowell. So the face was Simon Cowell. The voice, I'm not quite sure because I don't watch the show, but I remember when it came out and it hit the internet with a sensation. And this is what this AI concept on America's Got Talent, which apparently was one of the best performances or best talents that anyone came up with on the show, according to Simon Cowell. This is what it looked like.
Baby, you're the meaning in my life, you're the inspiration. You bring a feeling into my life, you're the inspiration. I wanna have you near me, I wanna have you hear me say.
And so this might be an episode where you want to pop over to watch the video component of it. But there you had the singer on stage with his image being projected on screen with the face of Simon Cowell, and it seemed flawless. And then he sings. And then the next, I guess, evolution of that whole talent was bringing out a couple other hosts, and then eventually all of them singing with Elvis at one point, and it became pretty phenomenal what they were able to do. And so that is the AI generated imagery that we are getting into, synthetic reality, as Morgan Freeman said. Or perhaps maybe you've seen some videos not as realistic as what Simon Cowell might have seen or Morgan Freeman, but maybe you've seen some AI created imagery of those cats, the military cats, based off of what happened in Springfield, Ohio. People started making videos of cats in military gear walking and marching and doing different military operations. Again, AI generated entertainment. But along with the good, obviously comes the bad. Thus, what is known as the deep fakes. So what is a deep fake? Perhaps you've heard the term, but basically it's artificial intelligence that manipulates video, audio, or images, creating something that uses someone else's voice, their likeness without permission, and it usually is nefarious, has something to do with a negative component to it, whether it's revenge, whether it's exposing someone, whatever. The deepfake is usually something that has to do with a negative connotation. The good thing about AI, though, is that after I'm long gone, I can hire somebody to create videos of Two Steps Ahead podcast, and you can have me forever. But one of the big areas that it's really affecting people is schools. Sure, you've got AI. I mean, think about it. First, back in the day before technology, what did you have? You had bullies taking your milk money. You had people getting put in trash cans. I think it was called being canned. Maybe you had the swirly. Okay. So, yes, all bad. But by today's standard, pretty innocent if you think about it. Because then when the technology came along and we started to have the internet, what happened next? Well, you started to have cyberbullying. And now what's the next generation is you've got people that are putting images out there of other people doing whatever it is. And a lot of it has to do with sexually orientated imagery. Take, for example, this one story out of New York and how this came about.
We were so mad. A lot of girls were crying.
Before October 20th, Westfield High School student Francesca Mani never thought her photo would appear online in a deepfake, an AI-generated image using her likeness. But it happened.
I never thought I'd be like a student. AI didn't even come to my mind. I just thought it would be like creeps on the internet.
Francesca didn't know what to do, so she went to the principal of her high school. Now, a week and a half later, the boy who allegedly made those images was temporarily suspended, reportedly for just a few days. Now he's back at school. There's an ongoing police investigation. And she has learned it might not just be one kid, it might have been a group of boys using upwards of a dozen girls' images to make AI pornography.
Just seeing him in the hallway makes me like scared. Just like all the other girls, so many other girls agree with me. They don't want him in this school.
So you're dealing with a new frontier. As you look through the stories, and there's a lot of them where AI tools are being created to make pornographic images of classmates, teachers, other people, and they're fake, but they look so real. Just like if you go to the video and you watch the video, that's Simon Cowell. It looks like Simon Cowell. Just like Morgan Freeman looked like Morgan Freeman in the video that we played to start the show. And so it's becoming real. Voices are becoming real. Imagery is real. But when you hear the voices and you put it all together, is this someone that is a real person, a real video, or is it AI? And one of the things that schools are facing are these fake videos that affect the students, but also teachers and principals, staff members, whether it's staff members using AI to go after other staff members or students using AI to go after teachers. But principals, teachers, staff members, they've all been affected by it. And most districts, most school districts, they're not equipped to handle it. AI technology evolving so fast. And unfortunately, a lot of educators, a lot of people don't know how to combat it. They haven't had training. I mean, you think about school shootings just for a quick minute. Fortunately, there hasn't been any in a while. But when you think about it, do you have training? Sure, you might have lockdown practices in schools or drills, just like you have fire drills. But what's a fire drill? A fire drill is just take your class and you meander out to the quad or the parking lot or your assigned destination. No big deal. But are you really equipped to handle a fire? What if you get trapped and your exit is denied? It's blocked by a fire. What if you have other issues going on and it's a shooter and you have to get out of there because your classroom is not a safe place because maybe it's full of glass? Whatever the case may be, fire drills, hurricane drills, tornado drills, whatever you're doing, are you really equipped as an educator to handle the extensive situation? Probably not. AI is the same way. So as most people aren't equipped to handle it, teachers, educators, and people are trying to catch up. You've had panels on this. You've had people meeting, different organizations and stuff, try to come up with some things. But the only thing they can come up with is the fact that schools need to provide a safe learning environment. And these deep fake, sexually explicit images of students that circulate online, whether it's peer to peer or student to teacher or whatever it is, people think, yes, there needs to be a safe environment. There should be consequences and the behavior needs to be addressed. But all they can come up with, well, we need to make it a teachable moment for kids. Maybe try to help them understand how this is bad. But there's no real punishment. There's no real consequences that anyone can come up with because it hasn't even been addressed at the law level, whether local or federal. Sure, some states have come up with different things dealing with child pornography. I think California came up with a bill that Newsom signed that said possession of AI created child pornography was a felony. But what about the school bullying type situation of AI creation and content creation? People don't know what to do. And parents probably don't even know that your kid knows how to use AI. But what are you going to do? Does it start with Congress having to come up with bills? I mean, they're thinking about it. They're trying to figure out what bills they should come up with and how it's affected. And then, of course, there's always the First Amendment that people argue, well, is it First Amendment? Is it free speech? Probably not. I mean, there's laws against revenge pornography where you took a picture or maybe you sent a picture to your boyfriend, your young lady, send a picture to your boyfriend, then you break up and he posts it online. That kind of revenge porn. There's laws against that. But how are you going to solve these issues? And more specifically, how are you going to solve and resolve these issues in an education setting? I mean, some of these deep fakes are actually really good. Hard to determine whether they're true or not. And I have a couple examples coming up, but I was looking online and there's a couple on video hosting websites. I think there's one of Brad Pitt, there's one of Rihanna, there's one of Kim Kardashian, a couple others. I think there's one with Harrison Ford, but Harrison Ford goes from old Harrison Ford to young Harrison Ford. But you take a look at some of these, and unless you knew that you were looking at it, you might not be able to tell. In fact, they say 90% of people can't tell that it's fake. One of the things that's kind of a drawback right now, according to some of the reports and some of the experts, is that making or creating deep fake video, depending upon how much involvement or how deep you go, like the depth of the video, the length of the video, it takes a lot of computer processing and things. So I think a 30-minute Brad Pitt deep fake was 72 hours of processing after you input the information. But as we know with technology, it's going to get easier and easier and easier. So schools, now that we don't have any parameters, because you heard the video, the news story, they were suspended for a couple of days and now they're back in school. Maybe it was one kid, maybe it was a bunch, maybe some kids got away with it. But now you've got these young ladies running around schools having to be in school with the very people that violated them. So they say schools should be focusing on educating their staff and students about this topic, devoting resources and skills so that they understand the challenges around deepfakes and other AI-generated media. I mean, as soon as it hit, the first thing was you had the reports, right? Your academic school reports, no plagiarism, no using artificial intelligence. Things like that. That was the first concern, was how are we going to stop people from doing their homework with AI? But little did they know that the bigger problem was going to be these deep fakes. And there isn't an easy button, and you've got to focus on the process, I guess. But here's a couple situations that have come up. There's two separate cases. There's many, but there's two specifically that aren't so, I don't know what the term is, but they're relatable. They're kind of a little bit easier to understand, perhaps. There's a school principal that a video circulated on social media of a school principal that had video spewing racist, violent language against black students. Now, it was AI generated. It was a deep fake. And I guess there was 2 instances that this happened. 2 different principals that had racist rants posted of them on social media. One was student generated and another was a gym teacher generated. A disgruntled athletic director. Now, the athletic director was arrested, not sure what happened to the student. But the technology to combat these AI tools that can replicate a person's image and their voice. So we created the AI that can do the person's image, that can recreate the person's voice. Now, the technology to kind of overcome that and stop it, maybe block it, is not there yet. And again, there's no real laws put into place, so it's the Wild West. Educators are scrambling to try to set policies, trying to limit the damages. Supposedly, state legislatures are trying to do some stuff. I know California, New York, Illinois, Washington State independently are trying to work with it. I think they've got some laws in the works, at least when it comes to child pornography, I guess. But wouldn't the high school, like the video that we heard about the news story, high school, wouldn't that be child pornography because they're under the age of 18, or is it 16? I mean, where do you draw the line? That's what you got to determine. If you're going to start to handle this thing, you got to determine, well, if the age of consent is 18, anything under that that's created from AI generation that is sexually explicit should be deemed under the child pornography and therefore punished accordingly, should it not? You've got some people like Ted Cruz apparently in the Senate trying to come up with some federal laws, federal bills to try to take care of it. But again, it's the Wild West and not too many people are up on what to do and how to do this. So at Maryland's Pikesville High School, the fake audio recording made by the principal, the police got involved, and the suspect was a 31-year-old athletic director who had been charged with theft, stalking, disruption of school operations, and retaliation against a witness. Why did he do it? Because apparently he was being under investigation for mishandling school funds as the athletic director. That's in Maryland. So a disgruntled employee created racist rants of the principal and threw them out there. And it was shocking for people because, again, 90%, according to experts, don't know that it's deepfake, maybe even more if you're not really expecting it to be. Like if you're just a student or maybe a parent somehow involved in the school and you start to see this social media content being spread of the principal spewing racism against black students, would that catch your eye for a moment? Probably. Would it make you suspect? Probably. Would it make you try to want to know more? Would you accuse and think it's true to start with? Because no longer in society are we innocent until proven guilty. It's you're guilty until proven innocent, right? So investigators got involved, and then eventually they realized that it was computer generated, AI generated, because they were able to link the suspect to old school computer logins using the logins. They were able to figure it out. They rewatched the videos over and over and over, and experts saw that the lip movement and body language were just a bit off, but the damage had been done. And once it's out there, you can't reel that stuff back in once you put it out there, because oftentimes it's the accusation alone. The accusation is worse than actually if you did it or not, because if you did not do it, but the accusation is there, you're done. And there's multiple. We've talked about the Duke lacrosse rape case, the accusations that turned out to be absolutely 1,000% false, but it created so much chaos in the world of Duke lacrosse players and the Duke University campus society. And it was a false allegation. Or the McMartin preschool that we talked about not too long ago, the accusations of human sacrifice and kids being sacrificed and all this nonsense, the accusation alone ended many people's lives. And it turned out to be a schizophrenic mom that just threw it out there. But here's the most important thing. So they discovered that it became, deep fake, and it was revenge. But teachers have no training on this. They don't know how to respond. They probably don't know about it. I mean, a lot of people aren't probably involved in social media with students, right? I mean, I don't know if you're a high school teacher, elementary school teacher. Do you really want to be connected via social media? As a college professor, sometimes I do. Sometimes I do like being connected via social media because I get to, A, kind of see what my students are up to and get to know them a little bit more, but then B, see what they're up to. Are there any issues that are arising? I've seen people on social media, students on social media, and I'm going to get to a story about marijuana in a few minutes that I want to bring up, but I would see them upload videos of them hitting the bong right before class. They put it up on Snapchat and stuff. And they come to class and it's like, oh, no wonder why you're out of it today. You were just hitting the bong in the car before you walked into class. But teachers aren't trained for this, just like they're not really trained for all the other emergencies that are going to arise. In fact, one time I had a kid, this is how simple it could be. I had a student, an adult student, 20s, I think, maybe this college, so post-high school, young kid. But I think he was in his 20s. But anyways, he came up to me after class one time. He's like, hey, I've got an illness. And if I go into something, it wasn't really a seizure, but if I start to kind of collapse, whatever, you need to take this EpiPen and stab me with it. And the first thing that came to mind was Pulp Fiction. The scene where they had to stab in the heart to get Uma Thurman's character back, Mia Wallace. And that's what I'm thinking that comes to mind. Am I going to have to stab this guy? And he's like, no, you just in the leg. I don't want to stab anybody. I'm not trained to stab anybody with an epinephrine pen. I guess I'd have to if it came up. I was grateful he told me about it because I don't know otherwise what I'd be doing. But again, situations like that arise and we're like, what are we doing? Or even just a seizure. I mean, I've been told that if someone seizes, you lay them down, put them on their side, and supposed to put a wallet or something in from biting their tongue off, right? Keep them from biting their tongue off. When I heard that you don't do that anymore, but you roll them over on your side. I don't know. I've never really been trained in dealing with seizures. I suppose I could try to do that, but with everything else that's required of me, who has time as an educator to do all of this stuff? I've got to watch too many woke videos on how to be woke and deal with LGBT ideology and stuff instead of learning how to really keep kids safe. But it goes on and on about teachers unprepared. It says teachers would prefer to contact law enforcement rather than discipline deepfake predators. Long-term suspensions, is that really going to work? Maybe counseling. Again, these are all some things that are coming up from teachers that are sitting in these panels, these conferences, trying to figure out what do we do. They've got a full plate just trying to educate. And we've gone over teachers and education and teachers leaving in droves and those that stay behind, how they're overworked, underpaid, and they've got no support whatsoever. And now you got to add stuff like this. And then what if you're the receiving end of a deep fake and you're a teacher? I mean, you got teachers doing OnlyFans. We've talked about that before and how that has affected and impacted academics. But now what about this deep fake stuff? Parents, what's their responsibility? What actions are they going to take? A lot of people said that education for first-time offenders about the harmful impacts of deep fakes is probably the first step. Then maybe suspension. Then maybe something else, expulsion. I mean, that's on the school side. I guess, like I said, teachers would prefer law enforcement to handle it. You issue a warning, a slap on the wrist. Think about this. According to reports, deepfake sexual content has increased by 400% and deepfake related fraud by 3,000% between 2022 and 2023. In 1 year, deepfake sexual content increased 400%. Deepfake fraud, 3,000%. That's how rampant this is. And again, there are no laws effectively targeting and eliminating the creation and circulation of deepfakes. And all the current requirements on creators are ineffective. And then, of course, misuse of AI generated content. Could that be AI issues? First Amendment issues with AI? If you're going to punish a student for doing something off campus, misusing AI at their home, how's the school going to handle that? Education leaders, they say, should raise awareness of the harms and consequences of AI-generated impersonations and make it clear that school communities and the emerging technologies, and if you misuse them, it can damage a person's reputation in the form of harassment. And law enforcement figures, they should figure it out. But here's the thing. Not too long ago, we did a podcast on Aubrey Wyatt. She was a young teen down in Mississippi, and four young ladies, are alleged to have cyberbullied her to the point where Aubrey Wyatt took her life. And they were relentless online and in school and so forth. But how much more is going to happen now when people learn how to do this and create these deep fake imagery and put them out there? And even if they are found out to be deep fake, how is that student supposed to go back to school and deal with that, knowing full well that everybody is going to make fun of, tease, and so on the victim? And there's no punishment. Just like the news story, the kid got suspended, and now he's back in school walking the halls with the victims in which he made the images. It's just crazy. It's out of control. But you think about how this all kind of started. It's kind of weird, right? They always talk about The Simpsons and how The Simpsons predicted some things. But remember that 1985 movie featuring Kelly LeBrock, Weird Science, when they're sitting there at the computer talking about generating a computer-generated woman?
Okay, look, you know how you're always talking about how you can simulate all that stuff on your computer? You know? What's the difference? Why can't we simulate a girl?
I don't know. I guess I could, but why? It's two-dimensional on the screen. It's not flesh and blood, Gary.
Well, I know that, but you know, we can use it. Why? We can ask it questions. We can put it in real life sexual situations and see how it reacts. Like real sick, demented shit. You'd love it.
Well, what about your girl in Canada?
She was in Canada. This girl's no morals. You know, I don't like that on a girl. It's rough having those kind of relationships. You'll see. Anyway, get to work.
And then they go on to create Kelly LeBrock. But you notice the mayhem that took place in that movie. And of course, it's a movie. But think about this. That was 85, almost 40 years later. We're living in it now. Sure, we're not bringing or creating women on the computer that then come to life, but we're creating these AI images that are being put out there, and they're being generated on the computer, much like in the movie Weird Science. So what's going to be done? What are people going to do to solve this deep fake? And schools have to deal with it because you got school districts still trying to deal with it. You've got teachers that are completely ill-equipped to handle it. There's no laws on the books. And like typical, society is behind when it comes to enforcing some of these things. Instead of getting out in front of it and looking at the big picture and realizing, okay, if this is created, this is a problem, this is a problem, that's a problem. But instead, we're reactionary. We're a reactionary society. And now we've got all kinds of stories. And you can go look it up. You can do an internet search and you can see all kinds of stories that come up. Again, 400% increase in AI-generated deepfakes with sexual material. And again, a deepfake isn't just let's just create some videos of adult entertainment. No, this is taking somebody's image and illegally pretty much or let's just say illegally for the sake of conversation, creating sexual content with the image of these people without authorization, without permission, whether it's the likeness, the voice, and so on. 400% in 1 year, 3,000% fraud. Taking somebody's voice. Remember Mission Impossible? I think it was maybe the second one when he had the voice strip and he could imitate anybody's voice. This is all becoming reality. Just like the Star Trek flip phone, Beam Me Up Scotty, became a reality. All of this is becoming a reality, and society isn't ready. Society isn't equipped to handle it. And what's going to happen is more and more and more people are going to suffer because of it before society ever gets a handle on it. And right now, it seems like it's either a law enforcement thing or it's a teacher thing. But some consequences have to be measured out. And I think the first step you can take is if it's a deep fake with sexual content and it's somebody in school, another student, then that should be treated just as child pornography and the laws apply. Start there. And if it's something to a teacher, like a student creating something about a teacher, well, then is the student underage? And perhaps there's pornographic laws about distributing, producing without a license, other things like that that you can go after. You can use the existing laws to go after. Now, again, a lot of people might be like, whatever. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect you until it affects you. And keep in mind, we're not only talking about schools. We're not only talking about sexually explicit imagery. We're talking about fraud. They get a hold of your image and your voice. My voice is my passport. Verify me. How many of you still use voice identification? Or now it's the face on the phone, right? The face identification. They create an image of you, and now they're able to use face technology to open up all your stuff. I mean, we see videos on social media where the mom or the baby mom has the phone and it's the dad's phone and it says it needs the face to unlock the phone. And so they put it in front of the baby because the baby looks like the dad and unlocks the phone. And now they have access. Okay, that's social media for you. But again, in reality, what's not to say that you create some sort of AI image that unlocks your face, your face phone, your face identification. It's running rampant out there and we're behind the times. But most importantly, when it comes to kids and students and this whole revenge thing or this whole exploitation thing, something has to be taken care of immediately. And it seems like society is just dragging their feet. So I guess time will tell. Well, during election season, one of the biggest things that always seems to be popping off is should we or should we not legalize marijuana? I think Joe Biden maybe ran on something like that back in 2020. And now there's states that are talking about or having measures, ballot measures. Should we legalize marijuana? And there's the back and forth about whether or not they should or shouldn't. And we're talking about recreational use. But there's a couple stories that I've seen pop up. I've known about this for a while, but a couple stories have popped up most recently that talk about the underbelly of this whole thing. And because it's election time, I thought it was kind of important, or at least to put it out there. But when you think of California, back in 2016, California legalized recreational use of marijuana. And so you could get a license and then you can go grow it. And there's certain parameters by which you grow it. 6,000 or so permits were put out there. But then what happened? Well, whether or not we have the mass illegal immigration contributing to it, or if it would have happened anyways, you have cartels from Mexico, you have gangs from China that have come into this country, specifically in California, which is what we're going to refer to, and they have created illegal weed grows. These farms and other entities that they've created to produce illegal marijuana. Well, how does that affect us? Well, let's take a look at it from a broad perspective, okay? It's something that's referred to as the green gold rush of California. You have climate change activists telling us that we need to do things to protect the environment. You have environmentalists in California that would rather save the minnow or whatever it was in Fresno in the Central Valley instead of water the crops. That happened a few years ago. You have these environmentalists all over the place that are trying to prevent people from cutting down trees, save the forest, no drilling, all that stuff, right? But what we don't see is these activists protesting what is happening to our natural habitat when these illegal drug growers grow in. So in California, you've got people that are these drug cartels and others that are growing these illegal plants up in Northern California, Shasta County, Humboldt County, up by the Oregon border. If you remember back in the day when Frank Poncherello, what was his name? Eric Estrada was selling California pines, trying to get you to buy some property at California Pines. It's up in that area. But what they're doing is they are creating these illegal marijuana farms. Well, what does it initially do? Well, first, it undercuts prices of the legalized product because you have less overhead, less cost. Okay, well, maybe for some people, yeah, you get cheaper stuff. But what are you getting in it is the next thing that comes along. But then here's the more important thing. Okay, we talked about where's the environmentalists and the climate change people saying we need to save the planet. But what about people exploiting workers? You got these cartels bringing people, and I don't think you have to smuggle them anymore. You can just bring them across the border, but you're exploiting workers with terrible conditions. You're robbing and shooting adversaries. So you've got gunfights going on. You've got poisoning of the wildlife. You've got poaching water. I mean, California is drought stricken half the time. Water is a precious commodity, and these illegal gangs are up there on these illegal weed farms taking water from people that rightfully own it or use it, and the people that should be getting it are not. And then you have, of course, the fires that come. Where's the water to put out fires? And drought, of course, drought conditions. And that's what's going on. And so you have all these things going on in Northern California, just as an example. You've got these cartels that are now no longer have to smuggle drugs in, just go grow it in California. Don't need to come up with any type of scheme, tunnels, submarines, drug mules, pack your car. Just go grow it in California because they don't know. Law enforcement, A, doesn't know what's the difference between, I guess, a legal grow and an illegal grow because they kind of blend together. But then, two, the cartels supposedly run Northern California to the point that local law enforcement can't do anything. They're outmanned. They're outgunned. The locals can't do anything. They're outmanned. They're outgunned. And you've got the Sinaloa cartel. You've got Jalisco Nueva Generacion and others. But they also don't stick with just marijuana. They've got billions of dollars in heroin, meth, and opioids that are in this country, and then they ship them out worldwide. They're flooding the streets with fentanyl, often pressed into pills to mimic prescription medicine. Overdoses are becoming more and more rampant. It became completely rampant during the pandemic, accordingly. The cartels have also infiltrated Kentucky. Overdoses rose 49% in 2020. So as you're embracing the marijuana and you're voting to make recreational use of marijuana a part of your state, do you think about this type of thing? Think about this type of thing and where it came from. You have about 10,000 illegal grows in Mendocino County, according to the sheriff up there, which is about a 2-hour drive north of San Francisco. And all he tries to do is manage it. Can't combat it. He said it's like fighting a dragon with a needle up in the Emerald Triangle. 21 deputies patrol a jurisdiction that stretches over 3,500 square miles. So you can see how easy it is to get away with it. And so what are these cartels doing? They're poisoning the ground, stealing the water, poisoning the animals. You've got murder. Apparently there was a 17-year-old and his father that came from Mexico seeking work. And apparently they were forced to kill some people, and they're charged with murder because people came across their grow. Detectives have found victims' headless bodies in the ditch under piles of tires that have been set on fire. If someone steps out of line, the cartels, think about this. You bring people in from Mexico or wherever, and you make them go work as forced labor, slaves. If they get out of line, you kill them to set a message to everybody else, send a message to everybody else. Fish and wildlife wardens stumbled onto decomposing bodies stuffed in the trunk of a vehicle alongside the road in Northern California. Drive-by shootings. One man was shot in a drive-by over illegal cannabis grow. So you've got this illegal cannabis grow being run by the cartels and supposedly legal, people with license, and they're combating each other. You've got rival gangs combating each other. You've got the complete destruction of the natural habitat, and there's nothing being done. Local law enforcement, like we said, fighting a dragon with a needle. 21 deputies for 3,500 square miles, and yet Gavin Newsom and the government does nothing. And now it's infiltrated Kentucky, and I'm sure there's other places. One person, quote, "It's the Wild West. Gunfights on a regular basis over marijuana. Number of missing people is insane. During grow season, people call the sheriff's office looking for loved ones who may never be found. A newspaper investigation found illegal growers are using dangerous chemicals from Mexico that poison animals and contaminate the soil. Armed criminal networks set up illegal grows on federal land in national forests on federal land. Illegal cannabis used to make nearly the pure form of THC is linked to explosions that have burned children and killed adults. So grow gone bad, basically. And veteran lawmakers approving legalization of marijuana. And so when you take a look at this, even if it's illegal, it's only a misdemeanor. Misdemeanor crime in California, regardless the size of the crop. So you can have 3,500 square miles of illegal crop, and it's just a misdemeanor. Investigators must prove environmental damage occurred or someone was stabbed or perhaps shot to elevate the crime to a felony. More than 30 states have legalized marijuana for medical use. 18 have allowed adult recreational use. Nationally, it's still a Schedule I drug, making it illegal. And so organized criminals have ready-made customer bases. They move their cannabis by train, plane, car to states where it's not legal. And they even say Californians will buy it illegally because it's cheaper. And so when you take a look of the glamorization of it, like let's say Spicoli.
Oh, you should be coming on pretty soon, dude. How much do you smoke?
This will be a little demonstration of that. Listen up. That was my skull. I'm so wasted.
So being glamorized in movies, the reality of it is you've got these cartels that are killing, that are undercutting prices, that are destroying the natural habitat. And then you've got people that are being trafficked or maybe forced into slave labor. You've got people that are just out there in the wilderness, hiking through the mountains, stumbling across something they shouldn't, and they get shot and killed. You've got people living in squalor. You've got the harming of the natural forest and the wildlife. Because you see, you can't have anything destroy the crop. So you have to kill off all the pests, like the insects, the bugs, the animals that might come and nibble on it. Although I'd love to see a rabbit get high or a deer get high and what that affects them. But again, they kill them all off because they don't want nothing to destroy the crop because it gets into their bottom line. And so they have to destroy the wildlife. And it's on a large scale. And it's, again, California, Alabama, Arkansas, Arizona, Colorado, Georgia, Idaho, on and on and on. It's all over the place. And that's what's happened. You think that the illegal immigration problem that you're seeing with some of the news stories popping up is bad now. But what we're not seeing and what we're not being reported on are these illegal grows that's destroying the habitat. And again, where are all these environmentalists and these people that are out there trying to save the environment, save the planet, save the animals? We can't drill because it disrupts people's natural habitats and the animals and so forth. But yet with this, doesn't happen. And it's not only in Northern California and kind of in the forests and things like that. It happens in the cities. There are places where in, let's say, Antelope Valley, California, which is like Palmdale, Lancaster, and so forth, where the grows have gone indoors. And so now you've got people indoors growing it in houses in the Antelope Valley and other places all across Southern California, for example. And again, you go back to the natural habitat of the wilderness, the national forest, federal land. There's news stories here about people looking down the business end of an AK-47 because they're just hiking in the woods and all of a sudden, boom. And these cartels aren't going to care. Oh, you were just hiking? Okay. No, they don't care. Trail users walking on the trails, a very real risk in Northern California because of illegal grows. But you've got these homes also in Southern California. What's the impact of that? Well, after the homes are destroyed by the pot growers, for example, what happens? The buildings that have been inundated, I guess you can say, with dangerous pesticides, they permeated surfaces, ceilings, walls, floors, vents, drywalls, toxic black mold that can bloom, I guess, in 75% humidity, which is what is needed for marijuana growth. You've got all kinds of things going wrong in the house once these people vacate the house. And so you've got working and middle-class families that are migrating to these communities, such as Lancaster, where you can still find a single-family home with a backyard for about $500,000, which is about half the median price of a home in Los Angeles. And yet, when they get into these homes, it's not only till after they purchase them, they realize that all these problems start to come up, whether it's the mold, whether it's the toxicity, whether they're getting sick, whether they realize that, oh, this has been remodeled in a fashion that was for the grow and not for the home. And so they have to redo some things because you've got inspectors coming in because you're buying a home. And all of a sudden now you just spent and committed to buying this home, and now you're stuck with it, and it's super toxic because of the pesticides. And it's in residential buildings, and it's all over California, Denver, and other cities as well. And not only that, so you have the laborers, the slave laborers, so to speak, up in maybe the natural forests and those type of grows, but now you've got the labor and sex trafficking going on in the cities. So you've got your grow and you have people working it, but now you've got this indoor facility. Now you have sex trafficking. You've got animal abuse. You've got gun violence, environmental crimes. And again, where's the outrage? Where are the people that are sitting there saying we need to shut this down because of environmental issues? Let's just start there. Forget about the fact that you've got illegal grows. And so you've got problems that come up. They suggest spider mites, which I guess can kill your plant. And so they have to eradicate them. And you've got some of these toxics coming in from Mexico. They're so toxic that they're banned in a lot of countries around the world, especially the United States. And some of them, they have to send out to laboratories to try to figure out what it is because they don't even know what's in these chemicals that are being used. Highly toxic pesticides, neurological, developmental, and reproductive effects, the negative effects caused for the discontinuation of these chemicals back in 1986, and they're starting to find them in these illegal grows. And people say, well, it's just pot. It's just pot. The people have spoke. Voters have spoke. It's okay. But look at California. Chinese organizations have taken over marijuana cultivation in 23 states. A DEA report noted that the recent uptick in the number of illicit grows linked to Chinese and other Asian organized crimes, the Asian investors, is emerging rapidly because of new funding sources. So you've got illegal marijuana funding these Asian gangs, these cartels, and they're out there trafficking and doing all kinds of nefarious things. And it's all because California, for example, said it was legal and everything moved in. So as you're sitting there and you're looking at whether you should have marijuana, recreational use of marijuana in your state, take a look at what's happening. And see, California, it's such a vast state, right? I mean, you had one jurisdiction that was 3,500 square feet. A lot of natural forest, federal land, complicates things. That's on federal land. Federally, it's illegal. Why isn't the federal government going in there and closing things down? But you've got this rampant problem, whether it's out in the forests of Northern California, whether it's in homes in Lancaster and Palmdale and other places in California, Denver, and these other states. And then people buy them and the toxicity, killing people, killing animals, all this abuse, all this other crime that's linked to it. And you've got the increase of cartels, Latin American street gangs, Chinese. I mean, look at the couple news stories about Aurora, Colorado, and how these Venezuelan gangs or wherever they're from were taking over a couple of apartment complexes, right? And then that one news lady was like, with JD Vance, was like, oh, it's just a couple. It shouldn't be any. Well, that's the same mentality here. Oh, it's just pot. But look at the effects it has on people. Imagine those people saving up to buy that home in Lancaster. Now they realize it was a former grow house and they just lost everything because they don't have the money now to clean it. Or the people that might have lived there too long and now they're going to be sick. And now maybe they're homeless. And you've got all kinds of problems. Nothing good comes from the legalization of drugs, period. I don't care what you say. Nothing good comes from it. Look at Oregon, Portland. They legalized all kinds of drugs, went into the crapper, big time. And now they're thinking about making all those drugs illegal again because it's so bad. And it all comes down to, first of all, I guess, relaxed consequences and the increased invasion of the criminal element into what was supposed to be a legalized entity of marijuana. So whether it's marijuana, whether it's AI, look at that. Marijuana, if it's an illegal grow, it's just a misdemeanor no matter how many plants you have. AI, no consequences. You have to look to marijuana. Is there environmental damage? Is there another crime to elevate it to a felony? No laws on the books for AI. Society is so reactive. There's no proactive in society that all of a sudden you just push these things and you don't realize what the ramifications of it, the consequences of it are going to be. And then it's too late. And it gets covered up. Nobody wants to talk about it. And then you can't do anything about it because now the cartels, which are pretty much like paramilitary groups now, control all of Northern California. And if you're just walking the trail, you might end up at the business center of an AK-47. If you've saved up your life savings to buy a home in Lancaster, it might be a grow, or any other place in California. It might be a grow house, super toxic. Now you just lost your money, your life savings that you invested, your dreams, the American dream of owning a home. It's getting worse. Recently, we just heard about an Afghan individual that was arrested, an illegal migrant that wanted to perform a terrorist attack on the election day. But people wipe that stuff under the table because it's bad news for those people that support it. So what are you going to do? I guess that's the question for you. Do you want this criminal element to come into? Because if it's illegal all the way around, it doesn't matter. Take any state that it's illegal. Anybody puts a grow up, they can go after them regardless because it's illegal. A place like California where it's legal, it gets mucky. And then all of a sudden the cartels and the Asian gangs and everybody else gets in there. And now it's a huge problem. And not only a problem for the people, but it's a problem for the environment. It's a problem for the economy. It's a problem for everybody. And for what? Just so that we can end up like Cheech and Chong.
Hey, you know what I do got though, man? I got a joint, man.
Oh, wow. All right.
Hey, come on. Light it up. Let's get Chinese eyes, man.
What kind of joint is this, man?
Oh, it's a heavy-duty joint, man.
Oh, it looks like a toothpick, man.
No, it's not a toothpick, man.
No, hey, it is a toothpick, man.
Oh, man, it's just... It is a toothpick.
There you have it. This is Two Steps Ahead podcast, encouraging you to take your passion, make it happen, let yourself be great. I'm Son Edom. Check out our website, radiowarp.com, radio W-A-R-P, radiowarp.com. You can click on the Two Steps Ahead podcast show logo that goes across the screen. And a lot of our shows, in fact, all of our shows will pop up there. We've got the video form of the show that's connected to our Rumble account. We've got an audio version on SoundCloud. There's an orange banner that goes across the page. Click that. Takes you to our SoundCloud page. You can listen anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Edify. You can do an internet search of Two Steps Ahead podcast. And again, 2 is TWO. But just do an internet search. And if you're looking for something specific, a specific episode, just put in that specific episode number. And it pops up. So we're pretty easy to find. We're on social media, Facebook, Instagram, at Two Steps Ahead Podcast. We've got an email, twostepsaheadpodcast@gmail.com. So we're pretty easy to find, pretty easy to get a hold of. You can send us an email. You can DM us you can slide into our DMs on Instagram, message us on Facebook messaging. So we're pretty easy to find. And I always want to put this out there. If you're in a situation and you have nobody, you don't know what to do, you're kind of on your last leg, send me an email, send me a message. Say, is there anything you can do to help? I personally might not be able to help you, but I might know people, connect you with somebody that can help you. If you need counseling, if you need something like that, therapy, whatever, there's people I know that can connect you with, depending on where you're at. Reach out. If you need spiritual guidance, there's people I know that can connect you with. If you just need someone on the other end of an email or whatever, I'm there too. You just want to chat about something, need advice, whatever, I can give you my 2 cents worth, and then you can decide. But I'm here so you don't have to be alone. So just keep that in mind. Reach out. twostepsaheadpodcast@gmail.com. Also on Instagram, Facebook. But we're pretty easy to find. Just do an internet search. Hey, Google. Hey, Siri. Hey, Alexa. Play Two Steps Ahead Podcast. And we pop up. Two Steps Ahead Podcast, encouraging you to take your passion, make it happen, let yourself be great. Again, I'm Son Edom. Hey, thanks for listening. Do tell a friend. And until next time, God bless.